Hello, viewers! Welcome to Timeless Tale Stories. We share fairy tales from cultures all around the world, and we post new stories every day.
Hello, and welcome to Timeless Tales. Tonight's story comes from the spirit of the Kazakh steppe, a place of wide skies, quiet courage, and kindness strong enough to face darkness. And before we begin, one important note for the imagery of this tale. Keep the characters and settings purely Kazakh and Central Asian in look and culture, no Spanish or Latin folklore styling, and no accidental Coco or Encanto type designs. This story belongs to the steppe, felt, wood, stone, river reeds, and simple village life under an endless blue sky. Long ago, in a small village near a winding river, there lived a little girl named Alma. Alma was not a princess, not a warrior in armor, and not a magical cartoon heroine. She was a Kazakh village child, about 9 or 10 years old, with a bright, attentive gaze and a calm strength in her posture. She wore a modest long dress in soft, earthy colors, with a simple embroidered trim at the cuffs embroidery that looked handmade, not royal. Over her shoulders, she sometimes wrapped a light shawl, and on her head she wore a small takia cap, neat and traditional. Her hair was dark and usually braided 2 braids tied with small cloth ribbons. Her face had that expression of a child who listens carefully before speaking, and when she smiled, it felt honest, like warm tea on a cold day. The village around Alma was quiet and real. Low homes made of wood and clay stood along dusty paths. Fences were woven from thin branches. Near some houses, you could see stacked firewood, hanging ropes with drying cloth, and small gardens protected from goats by simple gates. Farther out, the land opened into fields and grass, and beyond that endless steppe, the wind carried smells of river water, dry grass, and smoke from cooking fires. In the mornings, the light was pale gold. In the evenings, it turned the whole village into soft amber. Alma was known for helping everyone. If a child fell, she offered a hand. If an old woman carried a heavy bucket, Alma hurried to lift one side. If someone's lamb wandered away, Alma was the one who noticed the tiny hoofprints near the fence and followed them calmly. She did not boast. She simply did what felt right. But in that same land, a shadow existed. Deep beyond the village, past reeds and brush, past crooked trees and rocky paths, there lived a Zhalmauyz Kempir, an evil witch of Kazakh legend. She was not a cute fantasy villain. She was the kind of old story figure that feels like a warning, a creature of greed, fear, and dark tricks. People described her carefully because fear makes details sharper. They said she was thin as a dry branch, her back slightly bent, her fingers long and bony. Her hair was grey and tangled, like wool left in wind. Her clothing looked like a torn old robe, heavy and dark, with patches sewn unevenly. Her eyes were small and sharp, like a crow watching from a fence. And when she spoke, her voice sounded sweet at first, then cold beneath, like ice underwater. At night, villagers claimed they heard strange noises from the forest. The snap of twigs, a distant laugh, a whisper that didn't belong to the wind. Some said the witch stole people, especially those who walked alone, dragging them into the deep forest to frighten them, confuse them, and use them for dark purposes. The village feared her, and worst of all, fear made them silent. Everyone waited for someone else to be brave. One afternoon, Alma was playing near the riverbank. The river was calm, moving in slow ribbons around stones. Tall reeds swayed along the edge, and dragonflies hovered like tiny sparks. Alma skipped small stones with careful flicks of her wrist, each throw a smooth motion, elbow back, palm flat, wrist snapping forward. The stones hopped twice, sometimes 3 times, and then vanished with soft plops. As she played, Alma heard 2 women talking behind the reeds. Their voices were tense. "The Zhalmauyz Kempir again," one whispered. "Last night, someone went missing." Alma stopped mid-motion. Her fingers tightened around the next stone. "They say she drags people into the dark trees," the other said. "No one dares to follow." Alma's heart squeezed. Not because she loved danger, she didn't, but because she loved her village. Her mind became still and focused. She looked across the water, watching the reeds sway, and a quiet decision formed inside her like a knot tied tight. That evening, Alma walked to the elders' gathering. The elders sat on low cushions and benches outside a home, near a fire that crackled gently. The smoke rose in thin blue lines, and the orange light lit their faces. Alma stood respectfully, hands folded, posture straight. "I heard about the Zhalmauyz Kempir," Alma said clearly. "She is hurting our people. We must stop her." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. "She is too strong," one said. "Her magic is old." "We cannot risk more lives," said another. Alma felt fear brush her ribs, but she did not step back. "Then I will go," she said, "not with anger, with wisdom. If courage and a clear mind are in my hands, I can do something." The elders tried to stop her, but Alma's voice stayed steady, and her eyes did not waver. That night, Alma prepared carefully, not like a soldier, but like a child who respects old knowledge. She chose 3 items, each meaningful in a simple, traditional way. First, a silk scarflight, bright and smooth, folded neatly into a small square. Second, a small mirror, oval and plain, the kind used at home, with no decoration. Third, a handful of salt in a cloth pouch, salt as protection, salt as honesty, salt as something that belongs to ordinary life. Before dawn, Alma left the village. The sky was pale, the ground cool, and the steppe quiet. She walked with careful steps, heel to toe, listening to the world. Birds rose in the distance. The wind tugged gently at her scarf. Every so often she looked back once, not from doubt, but from love, and then turned forward again. The forest edge felt different from the village. The light dimmed under branches. The air smelled damp and sharp. Alma moved slowly, brushing aside thin twigs with her forearm, stepping over roots, avoiding loose stones. She followed signs, unusual scratches on bark, disturbed leaves, a faint trail where grass had been bent. At last, she found the witch's dwelling. A crooked old house pressed against rocks, hidden among dark trees. Its roof sagged slightly. The wood looked aged, as if it had absorbed too many winters. The doorway was narrow and shadowed. Near the entrance sat a large cat. This was not a cartoon cat. It was a realistic, muscular village-style cat with thick fur, sharp ears, and alert eyes. Its coat was dark black with hints of brown in the sunlight. Its tail moved slowly from side to side, and its pupils narrowed as it watched Alma. Alma did not run. She lowered herself carefully to the ground, keeping her hands visible, showing she had no weapon. She opened her pouch and poured a little salt into her palm. The grains glittered like tiny crystals. "Friend," Alma whispered gently, "I come with no harm." She extended her palm. The cat sniffed the salt, then licked it cautiously, tongue quick and rough. Alma remained still, breathing quietly, letting the animal decide. The cat swallowed, then looked at her again, eyes softer. In a voice that sounded like a low, magical purr turned into words, the cat said, "Kindness has a smell. You have it." Alma's eyes widened, but she stayed calm. "I need help," she said. "The witch is hurting my village." The cat's ears twitched. "I have watched her. I know her steps. I know her moods. And I can see the shadow in her heart." Alma nodded. "Then stand with me." The cat stood, stretching its front paws forward and arching its back, claws briefly showing before disappearing again. It padded silently toward the door, and Alma followed with careful, quiet steps, one foot placed, then the other, slow enough not to creak the wood. The door opened with a long groan. Inside, the air was stale. The room was dim, lit by a weak fire and a few smoky lamps. The walls were cluttered with strange objects, bundles of dried herbs, old bones, rusty tools, and jars. Everything looked harsh and crooked, like it had been gathered without love. Shadows moved in corners where the light couldn't reach. The Zhalmauyz Kempir turned toward them. Her face was wrinkled, her lips thin, her eyes shining with suspicion. "What do you want, little girl?" she hissed. Alma stepped forward. Her voice did not shake. "I came to stop you," she said. "You will not frighten my village any more." The witch laughed, high, sharp, unpleasant. "Stop me? You are small. I am old magic." She raised a crooked staff, and the air seemed to tighten. The fire flickered as if pulled by unseen hands. The cat's tail lashed once, and it spoke quickly to Alma. "Now, the scarf." Alma moved fast, but not wildly. She pulled the silk scarf from her pouch with one smooth motion, lifted it with both hands, and tossed it upward. The scarf unfurled in the air like a bright ribbon. It caught the light almost as if it created light and shimmered above them. The witch flinched and brought a hand to her face. The brightness stung her eyes. Alma immediately raised the small mirror, angling it so the scarf's light bounced directly toward the witch. The beam hit the witch's gaze, and for a moment she was blinded, stumbling backward with a frustrated growl. The cat darted forward, fast and low, knocking a jar off a shelf. It shattered loudly, glass scattering, distraction filling the room. The witch snapped her head toward the sound, losing focus. Alma did not attack. She did not harm. She used the moment to do what courage often must do: break fear's spell and escape with purpose. She grabbed the cat's fur lightly at the shoulder, just enough to guide without hurting, and they rushed out the door. Outside, the forest air felt fresh. Alma's lungs filled fully again. Behind them, the witch screamed in anger, but her magic had been interrupted. Confusion replaced control. They ran not blindly, but wisely. Alma scattered a few grains of salt behind them in a thin line, as if drawing a boundary. The cat led her through a path that twisted between rocks and trees, then across a shallow stream where water erased footprints. By the time the sun rose higher, Alma and the cat reached the edge of the village. When people saw Alma returning, they gathered, amazed. Alma stood in the center of the path, dusty but steady. The cat sat beside her like a quiet guardian, its eyes scanning the crowd. "She won't come back," Alma said. "Not if we stand together. Fear makes her strong. Unity makes us stronger." From that day on, the village changed. People did not hide alone at night. They walked in pairs. They checked on one another. They kept lamps lit near doors, and they spoke openly, not in whispers. The witch tried to creep near once or twice, but the cat's watchful presence and the villagers' new courage made the darkness feel unwelcome. Alma and the cat became protectors not by force, but by kindness, wisdom, and bravery. And in the evenings, when children gathered near the fire, they would ask Alma to tell the story again, how she carried a scarf, a mirror, and salt, how a cat recognized kindness, and how fear can be broken by a steady heart. And here is what this tale leaves with us. Evil often survives on silence and loneliness, but kindness and unity turn fear into weakness. Even a small person can do a great thing when the purpose is pure. Remember, be gentle, be brave, and help when you can, because kindness is not softness. Kindness is strength. Thank you for listening to Timeless Tales. If this story warmed your heart, keep that warmth close and share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, may your path be bright, your mind be calm, and your courage be steady. The end